Great. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fourth town hall for our childcare community. This evening's session is on resources for families. We have invited tonight our regular, Dr. Stoddard, Director of Emergency Management for Montgomery County, who will give us some updates on vaccines. We've also invited FloJean Speck from Maryland Family Network's Locate, who can talk to us a little bit about using that as a tool for marketing in this new world that we live in. We also have invited Rene Williams from MSDE's Child Care Scholarship Program, who will talk to us a little bit about some of the resources and information about that program to help families out who are eligible. And we will wrap up the evening with Detrice Brown, who will give us some updates on our local child care subsidy voucher program, the Working Parents Assistance Program. So there's a lot of information that's going to be coming out tonight. What I'm going to ask is that we get through each presentation, and then at the end, we've allotted some time for question and answers. At this time, you should all be muted. So if you could make sure not to unmute yourselves so that we can get through this. Definitely use the chat to write your questions. We'll get to them if we can during the presentation, but I'll definitely get to them at the end of the session during the Q&A. So without further ado, I would like to start with Dr. Stoddard to give us an update on all things vaccines in Montgomery County. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me back, and good to see you all again. Just want to give you a sort of lay of the land where we're at with vaccine distribution in Montgomery County. As you will likely know, we did open the statewide mass vaccination site, or we opened the site, but it transitioned to a statewide mass vaccination site last Thursday at the Montgomery College Germantown campus. Last week received 5,000 doses for that site. We got an increase to 5,850 this week, and we'll be vaccinating through our priority groups at that site. There are approximately 70,000 people who have registered to the state registration system. About 65,000 of those are Montgomery County residents, and about 5,000 of those are from across the rest of the state. And so the site will be servicing all residents of the state of Maryland, but obviously given that preferencing largely will be a large number of Montgomery County residents going to the mass vaccination site. At the county sites, we've actually diversified a bit. We've moved out of the Quince Orchard High Schools and Richard Montgomery High Schools as students are returning more and more to the classrooms aggressively. And so we're now doing vaccinations at the Silver Spring Civic Building, at the White Oak Recreation Center, and at the Wheaton Recreation Centers as well. So over the last several weeks, we've have been holding steady at about 10,000 doses. There was a national reduction in the allocations to states this past week. The state of Maryland saw about a 33% decrease week over week from last week in vaccine allocation, and that transitioned down to the health department's local allocation, which went from about 10,700 to about 7,200 this week. So while the mass vaccination site being open will offset some of that loss, obviously it will not, it would stop the progress we had hoped for. I also know that this week, and I will say largely the reduction that we saw was in the Johnson & Johnson doses. So obviously that single dose vaccine, which many people do want, we saw that reduction there. And so the mass vaccination site had been getting Johnson & Johnson last week, and we'll be getting Pfizer this week. The county health department will be getting Pfizer largely as well. On the child care vaccination front, I do know that Holy Cross conducted a vaccination for 150 child care centers with about 500 people scheduled for appointments. About 45% of those were Johnson & Johnson, the remainder were Pfizer last week. I know Adventist is opening several clinics this week. I believe the portal is now open. They have up to, I believe, 1,000 spots in there. And depending on how many people fill those slots, that's how many they'll do. I think the portal closes out on Friday. I think, obviously we're making good progress in vaccination. Unfortunately, we had hoped to see a continued increase. We're not seeing it this week, but now the state of Maryland has opened up vaccine eligibility to everyone over the age of 16. And obviously that will proceed until everyone is fully vaccinated. We still will be prioritizing all of the groups that are the older age groups, the essential workers, those with underlying health conditions. So as people come into our pre-registration system, we will prioritize those. But I do expect we'll be moving more and more into the full adult population as we proceed. and obviously getting as many done as we can every week. The local health department allocation, we actually got all 10,000 doses out last week by Saturday, and so we were awaiting our next allocation today before we could proceed with more first dose allocation or more first dose clinics. So we're making really good progress. We do need more help getting people pre-registered. We have about 140,000 people in the county system remaining. About 80,000 of those have already received invitations and have not yet accepted them. So we've only got about 60,000 people left in our system who have not yet received an invitation from the county. And I would expect over the next couple of weeks, all of those people will receive invitations as well. So, like I said, we're making good progress. We need more people to pre-register. We know there are more people who have not been vaccinated, who have not pre-registered. So if you haven't pre-registered, if you know families who have not pre-registered, please do work with them to get into our system and the state system and help us get more people vaccinated. So that's all I have for today. And thank you all again for being here. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I forgot to mute. Dr. Stoddard, I have a couple questions that were submitted prior to this evening's event, as well as one that's sitting in my box. The first one was, there's been a lot of conversations about the CDC making recommendations for physical distancing to be reduced to 3 feet in schools. Has there been any conversations of that here in Maryland?
Yes, we actually meet with MCPS fairly regularly. We actually have I think we're scheduling a non-public school meeting as well for later this week. It's important to read the fine print on the CDC recommendation for 3 feet. There are a few things that they stipulate in that requirement. Firstly, it is only in classrooms and only in classrooms where you cohort students, meaning where the students stay in the same space with one another for the entire duration of the day. Now, obviously, middle schools in Montgomery County, high schools in Montgomery County, you exchange rooms and classrooms, and you go to different subjects with different students. And so that 3 feet recommendation does not apply to those to middle schoolers and high schoolers. In addition, the recommendation also does not apply to spaces where you cannot wear masks, like cafeterias. It does not apply to auditoriums, hallways, buses, and other sort of bottlenecks within a school environment that make it very difficult to implement, meaning you can get people once they're in the classroom, you can space them 3 feet apart, but obviously you have to be able to maintain the more extensive distancing in other spaces. And so having spoken with MCPS, I know that they are working to implement it in spaces where they can implement it, but obviously, it can be challenging in different school spaces when the classroom is one part of it, but obviously making it work on the buses and hallways and other venues is an additional challenge that they are working through. So we've not obviously provided any impediment to MCPS being able to implement that. We've encouraged them to do it where it's appropriate and work with them to make it happen. But obviously, it's not just as simple as, okay, you can have twice as many kids in the school as you had before, because the CDC recommendations aren't that simple to implement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Another question that we received also was in terms of vaccinations. As more and more people are vaccinated, what can we expect in terms of the restrictions being lifted, such as the physical distancing, the wearing of masks, the high volume of disinfecting and sanitizing of surfaces?
Well, so I'll talk about the last point first. So actually, the CDC has made some real modifications to the cleaning requirements for COVID-19. I would encourage you. I think they just made it last week. I think some of the articles refer to it as, many of the things we've been doing with cleaning spaces have been overly aggressive. COVID-19 is not, frankly, spread very effectively via surfaces. It is much more effectively spread person to person, or in aerosols that stay after a person who's infected leaves a space and just sit there because of inadequate ventilation. And so I would argue that the wiping down the surfaces every hour is probably not as beneficial as opening a single window in your space is going to be. And so I think it's often been called pandemic theater, we recommended cleaning very early on because we did not know the way that this virus spread. As we've increased our understanding of the virus, I certainly think that the cleaning requirements can be diminished. And frankly, I'd much rather you open up a window than be focused on wiping it spaced out in every hour. On the other requirements, I think masks are going to be here with us until at least the fall. I think distancing will change with vaccination rates changing. Obviously, we have not seen, we've been sort of plateaued on our case rate and our test positivity. We're doing better than most of the rest of the state of Maryland, but obviously when you see Baltimore City sitting at like 42 cases per 100,000 every day, that's a pretty significant level of infection. And we're obviously monitoring what's happening in places like Michigan, where the B117 variant has spread like wildfire, and it's driving a significant case burden, hospitalizations as well. And so I do expect it to get better. I just don't, I think it's going to be, we're going to need a substantially higher percentage of fully vaccinated individuals. I think we're sitting at about 24% right now. I think when we get closer to like, 60%, I think you'll see us start to reduce more restrictions, because I think our cases will be going down when we get there. So I think we're about 45% of the population or so has at least one dose. And so we're maybe a month or two away from maybe some more restrictions. Maybe let's say the end of May. I think we'll be really looking to increase capacity and things like that. But I do think some level of distancing and face coverings will be here the longest of their restrictions.
Great, thank you. And then the last one I have in my box was asking specifically about the vaccines. Now that Montgomery County has a mass vac site in Germantown, Montgomery College Germantown campus, can we sign up through the county portal to get our shots there?
So the mass vaccination site uses the state pre-registration system. So what I would encourage you to do if you're looking to get vaccinated is to pre-register with Montgomery County in our system and pre-register with the state of Maryland in their system. That will cover you for about 75% to 80% of the doses that come into the county. Now, obviously, you then have to go do all the pharmacies and hospitals and other opportunities to get all of them as well. But I would say the two easiest, most straightforward, and you pre-register one time, and your name will just eventually be called, is the state pre-registration system and the county pre-registration system. It's the easiest, most straightforward, and has the most value for time spent.
Great, thank you. And speaking personally, it's just a little bit of patience, and you'll get called.
Yeah, like I said, we only have about 70,000 names in our system currently, or 60,000 names in our system currently that have not been yet called at least once. And I mean, to fill up 10,000 vaccinations, 12,000 vaccinations, we usually send out about 20,000 opportunities. So we've got about 3 more weeks before everyone in our system has been offered an opportunity to come in and get a first dose. That's wonderful. So we're making good progress through, but we're hoping to see this increase in federal vaccine that we've been told is coming, and we're ready to receive it, ready to get it out. So
great, well, thank you. So let me just put a little a pin in this also, is that as you know, the R&R has been working with our COVID team to collect names so that we can prioritize our childcare providers, and we did that through last Friday. We are no longer collecting names, and we do stress that everyone go through the county's portal to register, and as Dr. Stoddard said, the state one as well. So there was a link to a spreadsheet. I got a couple emails today asking why the link was not working. It's because we have taken it down. So please use the county's website and the state's website, and I'll drop those in the chat in just a minute. Okay, so the next topic we have is the importance of updating Locate. And we have invited FloJean Speck, who is the director of Maryland Family Network's Locate Childcare. FloJean, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I love to talk about Locate. So let me see if I can make this PowerPoint pop up, and then we'll go. Just want to talk, are you seeing the PowerPoint?
Yep, we see it.
Yay! Okay. So I just want to talk real quickly about what Locate is and what Locate does. Locate's a free service funded by the state of Maryland, early childhood education that offers free referrals to parents and has a database of all the regulated childcare in the state of Maryland. We have 4 services. Community Line is our main service. It's a basic service where any parent in the state can call. We interview them. We talk to them about choosing childcare, and then we give them referrals. We give them 6 referrals at a time, the names of providers who meet their requirements. We have a special needs enhanced service, which does the same thing as far as interviewing and counseling, but they also find out what special need, what the child's special need is, and then they actually call providers to find out if they can make the accommodations that are necessary and if they have openings. So we do the legwork for the parents in that service. Also, our corporate service, organizations contract with us to do the legwork for their employees. So we do the same thing, do the interview, find out what they need, and then our corporate specialist calls providers to find out if they have openings. The last service is Locate Assist, and that's our online web search that parents can do their own self-directed search. And that is has become much more robust in the last couple of years, and it's much more popular. More parents are wanting to do their own search online than talk to someone on the phone. So so that's just a little overview. Why is it important to update your record? Well, parents choose the providers about whom they have the most information. Remember, we're interviewing them to find out what they want. And then we're trying to give them the provider that matches that the most. So the providers. And a lot of times they do research ahead of time. They know what they're looking for. They have the age of their child, the type of care that they want. They may not know that. We talk to them about type of care. They may know that they want a provider that participates in Maryland Excels. They want to know the hours of operation, the days of the week that are available. And so the information that's most important for you to update, vacancies, even if they're 0. If they're 0, then they're not going to call you. If they aren't 0, they will call you. If they know you have vacancies, which is what they're really looking for, they're going to go make a beeline to the people who have vacancies. Ages served. Parents search by age, and this is especially true on the website. And if they search by age and you don't have ages in your record, you're not going to come up as a match. So it's really, really important to have the ages served in there. Fees. Parents want to know fees. But I know not everybody wants to share them. We have a request that you share your fees with us because we do annual reporting and reporting for the jurisdictions and with average cost of care, availability of care, that type of thing. So that is not down to the level of the provider. That is an aggregate number. So we ask that you share that information with us so we can do the reporting. But you can tell us not to share your fees if you would like us not to. You have the choice of telling us that you just don't want them shared on the web, or you don't want them shared at all. If you say you don't want them shared at all, we mark it in the database and our specialists won't even see those fees. So they won't be able to slip and tell them anything. Hours of operation, start and end times, days of the week, evenings, weekends, overnight, drop in, those things are gold for parents that are searching. And the special needs you can accommodate. That is a really big thing because that's how our special needs providers or our special needs specialists know who to call. They go looking for somebody who has experience or at least can make the accommodations for specific special needs. And it is down, I think there's about 50 different special needs that you can indicate whether or not you can accommodate those. I'm going to quickly try to share just the screen. Let's see. Are you seeing the locate screen?
Yes.
Okay. This is the locate provider update online. This is the best way to update your information. We don't have that 16-page questionnaire that you had to fill out the whole thing anymore. What we have is this. All the information that we have about you is already in there, so you only have to make changes or additions. And it does have 6 screens. And for example, one screen is just your basic information. The next is, here's where the ages come into play and the fees. And then I'm not going to go through all the screens, but I just wanted you to see how easy it is to use. And so that's just kind of an overview, but that's why it's so important to update your information. It's so we can make a match.
Thank you, FloJean. I did have a couple questions that came through my chat. The first one is in terms of setting up, I know each program has an account, correct, that they set up their profile. But here in Montgomery County, with most of the state, directors can come and go, right? And they may leave, and then it's very challenging to get back into that profile because the director is no longer there. How can organizations get in touch with you to be able to update those profiles and rectify that?
They can call us. They can either email locate@marylandfamilynetwork.org, or they can call us, and I'm going to get our
if you could put those in the chat, that'd be great. Yeah, put the email and the phone number in the chat.
Okay.
And I know that right now everyone is teleworking. How quickly does a response get made when someone calls or emails? What is the expectation for a response?
Within the response, if you call in the morning, you're going to get a call back same day. If you email, it may be next business day, but
Okay.
you will hear from us within the next business day.
Great.
And
I would assume they would need to have like the registration number or the license number of the program to verify.
We prefer that you give us the license number, but we can find you by name and address, and then we'll confirm the license number with you.
Okay.
We do confirm the license number though to make sure that we have the right person.
Perfect. And then the other question I had is, so sometimes, people fill out their profile, and what I hear a lot, and this is a question I have right here, is I filled out my profile, but I never have children sent to my program. So how does that work? Because parents are looking for something specific. So how does it work that a program is filtered through and found on this list that you're giving to families?
Yeah. Basically, as I said, we do an interview. We ask what days of the week they want, what type of care they want, and we do encourage them to look at both types of care. We ask them, and we even go down to the level of, if it's a family provider, is it okay to have pets in the home? We try to get as much information as we possibly can. Then we do a search looking for providers who match those requirements. And then we give a list of 6 on each call. We give a list of 6 providers. So it comes down to, is somebody searching in your area? Are they looking for what you have? And do they call all 6 providers on the list we give them? And that's a big part of it. Do they just call the first 2 and then they don't call anyone else on the list? There is no magic way that we select providers. There's no way for us to say, we know this person doesn't have children. Let's select that person, but that's why the vacancies are so important, because
So,
especially online.
so how often should a provider be updating their profile as well as their vacancies?
They vacancies should be every month. Profile, I would suggest every 6 months unless something changes.
Okay.
We have people who, and if your phone number changes or your email changes, you can just call the provider line. You don't have to go online to do that. And provider line can do vacancies for you too. We can't take do the whole thing, but we can take those small things for you. And if you're having problems getting online, call the provider line. There is somebody there that can help you get online, help
And
you reset your password.
You have counselors
I'm
who
sorry.
speak other languages?
We have one specialist who speaks Spanish, and then we use the language line interpretation service, so we have every other language available to us.
Great. Okay. And then one last question I have here is, obviously due to COVID, many families have been staying at home, teleworking, finding alternate care during this time. Has Locate seen any uptick in the past month or so in terms of families looking for childcare?
We've seen it mostly in our special needs area, which I thought was interesting. We've found that more special needs parents of children with special needs are coming back and looking now. People who had called us at the beginning of the crisis and then said, "Oh no, I'm not looking anymore," they're calling now. And we do see a slight uptick in community line calls, and as well as corporate. So we're starting to see things come back, but it is gradual.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know here in Montgomery County, in our public school system, the children who are in our PEP or preschool education special needs, they were one of the first to return back to in-person instruction. So that would make sense,
Okay.
trying to find
Okay.
childcare. Well, thank you so
And
much. Oh, yeah, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, and people are still looking for care for school age for the days when they're not in school.
Yes, and here in Montgomery County, we have a couple of different options for our school-age children, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. But thank you, FloJean. I really appreciate the information you shared. I'm sure we'll have more questions at the end. So now what I'd like to do is switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about subsidy, and I have invited Rene Williams, who oversees our Maryland State Department Child Care Scholarship Program. And Rene is going to talk to us a little bit about really, what you need to know as a provider to help families who, for them, the tuition is out of their range, out of their means. So Rene, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me to this town hall. I was in Montgomery County today, and I really miss Montgomery County. So I want to say thank you for this invitation. Thank you for the child care provider community that is present, and to the panelists, FloJean Speck, Detrice Brown, and Dr. Stoddard. And Dr. Stoddard, I just want to say, do you have a vaccine for COVID-30?
COVID-30.
Yeah, I think I've gained 30 pounds since I've been inside. So I'm wondering if there's a vaccine for that. But we can talk offline about that, Dr. Stoddard. I hope you have something that you can recommend. I see that Jennifer put something in the chat in reference to the COVID-19 vaccine, but I'm interested in the COVID-30 one as well. Okay, moving right on. Montgomery County Townhall Child Care Scholarship Program. Kenya, can you proceed to the next slide, please? All right, so I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the Child Care Scholarship Program. And the Child Care Scholarship Program is a program that is available to parents that are eligible based upon income. And on this slide, what we're showing you here is the new income scale. And it's in the chart that's on the left-hand side. For example, if there's a family size of 3, the maximum income that a new applicant can have is $60,000 a year, a little bit over 60,000. But once that family comes onto the program, their income can go up to $78,000 a year before they're not eligible for the program. I think that this is very exciting news because for child care providers, for example, if you have someone on your staff that has children, a lot of times they're not making $60,000 a year. So you can actually have individuals that work for you that are eligible for the program, but also you can have families that are not participating in the program that could be eligible. And this program could help them with the cost of childcare. And as we know that childcare in Montgomery County and Howard County are the most expensive childcare in the state of Maryland. So this program could help families. Next slide, please. Okay, now this slide right here is going to be very difficult to see. And as I'm looking at it, I just wanted to show you what a scholarship looks like. So basically a scholarship is nothing more than a paper that tells you that a person has been determined eligible to receive services. On this scholarship, it gives the amount that we pay on behalf of the parent each week. We pay every 2 weeks. So whatever this amount is, it will be doubled. It shows the amount of copay that the parent will have to pay. So what the program does is it decides that a parent has to pay a portion for their child care out of pocket. So the scholarship describes that amount. And what we do now is, based on federal regulation, is we authorize care for 52 weeks. There are some circumstances where we authorize care for 60 days, but those are for individuals that do not meet the eligibility requirements when they first come in. And what we're trying to do is help those individuals meet the eligibility requirements. And as soon as they do, then we will issue them a scholarship for 52 weeks. Next slide, please. Okay, we have a change that is coming into effect on May 1. Our current vendor is CCS Central. And for child care providers that are on the program, the slide here demonstrates the contact information that child care providers used to use in order to contact CCS Central. Next slide, please. Effective May 1, we will have a new vendor and we will have new contact information. So we'll be sending this out shortly to the child care community to make sure that everyone has the new information that they need to utilize in order to get in contact with the child care scholarship program. Next slide. Okay, I have a couple of questions that Jennifer told me it was very important for me to be able to address during this call. So I wrote them down to make sure that I did not miss any. The first one is, why is it so difficult to talk to a real person with a question when contacting CCS Central? Okay, what I did was I went and looked at the monthly report to see what our trend is in reference to phone calls. So Child Care Central averages about 22,000 calls a month, all right? So if you can imagine 22,000 calls a month, if we had to try to staff enough individuals to answer those phone calls, we couldn't hire enough staff. So that's why the IVR was designed, that's the interactive voice recognition system, was designed to give providers the basic information that they need, as well as parents. So what I did was, not only did I look at how many calls were actually answered, they received 22,000 calls last month. 20,000 people actually spoke to a representative, and they had 1,000 and something calls that were abandoned. So I think they're doing a pretty good job. And it's just that with that kind of high call volume, you cannot expect to talk to someone every single time you call. All right. The next question is, how long does it take for a parent to find out if they qualify for a scholarship. Okay, regulations state that an application has to be approved or denied within 30 days. Okay, so within 30 days, that application will be approved or denied. And this is something that we look at and track very carefully, because with these contracts, they are very high cost contracts. And we have what we call service level agreements. So every month we have certain criteria that have to be met by the vendor, or they have to pay a very substantial financial penalty. So for any application that is not approved within that 35-day window of time, the vendor has to pay $500 a day. So most applications are approved or denied within the 30 days. Now, what helps an applicant to have an answer quicker than that is when the applicant submits all documentation that is necessary for the case to be approved. The next question is, what is the child care provider's responsibility? The child care provider's responsibility is to make sure that, one, you receive a scholarship from a parent when they walk in the door. And that is the document that authorizes services. That is the document that protects a provider. So your responsibility is to collect that scholarship. You and the parents sit down together and talk about your rules and your regulations so that everyone is clear on what's expected. And then if you and the parent decide that it is a great fit for both of you, you sign the scholarship and submit it into CCS Central. Once you do that, then CCS Central will send you an invoice. Once you get the invoice is the document that leads to payment. All right. So one of your responsibilities is to complete the scholarship and to send it in. Another responsibility is every 2 weeks you send in the invoice so that you can get paid for the services that you rendered. The next question is, what happens if a family receives a scholarship that does not cover the full cost of care? Okay, if a parent receives a scholarship that does not cover the full cost of care, then the parent is responsible for paying any difference that is owed to the provider weekly. No different than any other parent that comes in your door, okay? So if you have a parent that has a scholarship or one that does not have a scholarship, whatever your pay cycle is, that's what you need to establish with the parent. And that's why it's so important for parents to know what your cost is. And when we did a survey with parents, we found out that knowing the cost of care is very important to parents. And I think that that's basically no different than anything else, right? So like when we go shopping for, at least when I go, I'm not a shopper, but when I do go, the first thing I do is the item catches my attention. The second thing is the price tag catches my attention, right? So I might think your building or your facility is the best looking facility on paper, but if I can't afford it, then that's going to impact my decision. So unlike other states that have a scholarship program, some states will not allow providers to charge over the scholarship, but Maryland does, because we understand that you guys are small businesses and you have the right to charge the amount that you deem fit for your services. Second to last question is, how does CCS Central determine how much a family qualifies for and how much the child care program will get? Okay, so the child care scholarship program has a scale, and that scale is online, by the way. If you go to moneyforchildcare.com, that was the last slide that I had up. If you click on family and go to the child care scholarship program and click on rates, you can see the rates for the entire state. So the rate is based upon family size and income. So based upon family size and income, we determine how much we will pay and how much the parent will pay out of pocket. And we pay a different amount for centers versus family child care homes versus individuals that decide to use informal child care. And the last question is, how long should it take to receive payment? All right. So what happens is, once you get the scholarship from the parent, you and the parent complete the scholarship. You send the scholarship, excuse me, that was a tongue twister. You send in the scholarship to CCS Central. And once you do that, they associate the scholarship to your program, because until you send it in, we have no idea who the parent selected as a child care provider. Then once you get the invoice at the end of the 2-week period, you send in the invoice. If you have direct deposit, it should take about 5 days before you receive your payment. And Jennifer, I think that's the last question that you gave me. And thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Thank you so much, Renee. It's always such a pleasure. And for those who don't know, Renee used to be here in Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services with WPA. So old friend, and I appreciate you coming in this evening to give this overview. I think it's very helpful for providers to understand their rights and responsibilities and how to communicate best this amazing program to our families. And I'm so pleased to see the income eligibility increase. That is such a phenomenal really help for many families, especially right now, as we are all struggling through COVID. So thank you, Renee. I appreciate it. I actually have no questions in my box because I think you covered it all.
You're welcome.
So, but I'm sure there'll be some questions at the end. So hang on, okay?
Thank you.
All right. So quickly, before I introduce our next panelist, you heard Renee say that the vouchers are based on market rates, and there is that tie between Maryland Family Network Locate and MSDE about gathering the information of what is the child care tuition market rate. And that's why it's so important to really inform on the Locate database what your tuition is, so that when we inform the state and they're looking at what the voucher eligibilities will be, what the income eligibilities will be, as well as what the payments will be, to have that information that is really true and accurate for market rate. Okay, so the next panelist we have is Detrice Brown, who is a manager within our DHHS's Working Parents Assistance Program, and she's going to give us an overview of the WPA program, which is a supplemental to the state's child care scholarship. So Dee, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good evening to everyone.
Oops,
Can you see?
We just lost it.
Oh, wait a minute. Did I move it?
Okay, make it bigger.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Yep, we got
it. Whew. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you, Jennifer, for having me. I just want to go over a little bit about the WPA program, the requirements, who is eligible for the program. You have to be a resident of Montgomery County, and you have to meet our income guidelines, and you'll see that on the next screen. You have to be employed at least a minimum of 25 hours per week, or you could attend undergraduate school or a combination of work and school. So if you go to school, let's say for 6 credits, and then you work for 15 hours, then we will look at that to equate to make your minimum of 25 hours per week. The pursuit of child support, you have to pursue child support. It could be through the courts, it could be voluntarily, or you can claim good cause. Eligibility is based on the child being a United States citizen or a permanent resident, and the children must use licensed care. Now, the income requirements for the WPA program, this is our income requirements for the program. And one of the things I wanted to bring out is that we pick up from where the state ends. So Rene went over their income requirement. at the intake scale. So WPA picks up from where that incoming scale ends. Okay, but this is our current rates as of right now. Now the process, once you apply for the WPA program, the application is received. It's assigned to a case manager, and eligibility is normally determined within 30 days, if not sooner. When a parent comes in and they have not found the daycare provider, we will issue what's called a pre-voucher. And so the pre-voucher, and this is what the pre-voucher looks like. It's like a shopping cart, so to speak, where they can take it, and it will have the information when there as far as how much that child is eligible for. And this is just the voucher, the actual voucher, what a voucher looks like. Once a parent is eligible for the program, we issue out this voucher. It's sent electronically now to the parent and the provider, and that's a recent change that we've made, that now we send it out to the parent. Before, we would send the parent the copies and she would give the copy, or he or she would give the copies to the provider, but now they're both sent out to the parent and the provider. Now, the provider's requirements, you have to be licensed within the state of Maryland. You have to register with the county central vendor registration system, provide quality child care, and we ask that that you ensure that the parent gives you, actually this was with our old process, I'm sorry, that the parent give you the voucher, but now that we're emailing the voucher to the provider, you will have that at the same time actually that the parent will have the voucher. We did switch effective this month. We switched to a new invoice processing. So we no longer create invoices that we send out to you or mail to you. You actually now will go online and fill out your invoice based on the voucher that you have from the parent or the voucher that we send to you. You will go online to this website and you will fill out your invoice and submit to us for payment. And one of the things I wanted to note is that it's not mandatory to participate in Excels for the WPA program. One of the things that WPA do offer is that we do issue supplement vouchers to families that are on the state child care scholarship program. And then to be eligible for the supplements is that you have to be a resident of Montgomery County and you have to have a child that's eligible for the state scholarship. No application is required. A lot of time families will send us an application because they're trying to apply for the supplements, but you don't have to submit an application. We get reports, a quarterly report from the state, and we use that to determine which families are eligible for the supplement. And this is the WPA, this is our contact information, our website for payment inquiries. If you want to submit an application or a parent wants to submit an application, this is the email address to do that, and our info link number, general number, and then our fax number, and then where we're located as well. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is about the county offers a school age grant program. And this program was based on school age children who are in daycare full time while they're in daycare and doing their virtual learning. This is a program that the county has approved during this time that we're in the pandemic, and the funds are available until June the 30th, and you can go online to apply for the program.
Great. Thank you so much, Dee. This is very helpful. And just one side note about the school age grant program, that you know, we know that some programs are doing an AB schedule, or sorry, some schools are doing an AB schedule, some are all day but Wednesday, and they have just recently prorated. So it's the school age voucher will cover the days that the child is in childcare versus a fixed rate as it was over previously. So Dee, I did have two questions dropped in here. One is also, how long does it take for a family to be notified that they are awarded WPA? I think when they get their when they're awarded a voucher from WPA.
So it's within 30 days, if not sooner.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, what happens if the parent doesn't pay their difference? Perhaps maybe from between the voucher, they have a balance and leave. Who pays me the difference? I think they're asking is if a parent leaves, what happens with the difference that WPA has covered, but the balance that the parent is expected?
So it's the requirement is that the parent is to pay whatever balance that she owes before going to the next provider. We need to make sure that she has made payment arrangements or have paid that whatever she owes before we will issue another voucher to her.
So it's important for the provider to notify WPA that there's a balance due.
Yes, yes. So we
Great.
do have a provider change form.
Okay.
So that the providers, so when they're leaving one provider going to another, the provider signs off for it, the old provider does.
Mhm.
So that way we know whether or not there's any outstanding balances.
Great. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Dee. I really appreciate it. I do want to say thank you to all of our presenters this evening. It's a lot of information. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to sort of process. We've heard from Dr. Stoddard. We've heard from FloJean Speck from Locate. We've heard from Rene Williams from Child Care Scholarship and from Detrice Brown from WPA. Now we're going to open it up to questions and answers, and you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question to anyone. I will say that I'll let you know that Dr. Stoddard had to step off, so if there's any vaccine questions, hopefully I can answer them. So you may unmute and ask your questions now. Victoria, Kenya, they can unmute, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. You can simply unmute yourself and ask your questions. Wow, no questions? Don't think I see. Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
Maria Eid here.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, are the providers notified when the families no longer qualify for the WPA or the scholarship programs?
So why don't we ask first Rene and then we'll go to Detrice. So Rene, are the providers notified when the family no longer qualifies for their scholarship?
That's a great question. Yes. So basically, the good news is once a scholarship is authorized now, we don't end it. If a scholarship is authorized for 52 weeks, the only way that it's going to end is if, one, the parent requests for the scholarship to end, two, if the family income exceeds 85% of the state median income, if the family moves outside of the state of Maryland, or if a family gains assets in excess of $1 million.
And if any of those things were to happen, would the state notify the provider that that family no longer will be receiving their scholarship?
Yes.
Is there a
So
mechanism?
yes, Jennifer. So anytime a scholarship ends prior to the end date that is on the scholarship, we have to, by law, give the provider at least a 5-day notification that the care will end. And if we end it, we will pay for those 5 days.
Okay. All right.
I have a
Detrice.
question.
Detrice, you want to tell me, does WPA notify the provider when a family is no longer eligible for a WPA voucher?
Yes. So the payment specialist will inform the provider anytime there's a change to the existing voucher. She will reach out and let the provider know that a change has been made.
Okay, so Maria, the answer is yes, you will be you will be notified. All right, I heard someone had a question.
I am having a question.
Sure, good evening.
This is about the COVID-19 vaccination.
Yes.
If a provider is vaccinated, for the 2 times, whatever, is
Mhm.
she allowed to take the mask off when she's dealing with children?
No, mask wearing, as Dr. Stoddard had mentioned earlier, is still a requirement. It'll be one of the last things that we will, the last restriction that will be lifted. So you will continue to wear a mask. Remember, the vaccine protects you, right? But you could, we need to protect others that we're caring for. So it's still important to wear the masks. And in Montgomery County, as the state has recommended as well, we're still wearing masks. Here in Montgomery County, it's children over 2. If they're developmentally appropriate, they should be wearing masks. So we will continue to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I did have a question here about now that we're hearing that COVID cannot be spread as easily or as fast as we had thought on surface contact. Is it still necessary to sanitize playground equipment between each class? So there's 2 things here. One is, remember, under licensing requirement, if there's any bodily fluids that you do need to be disinfecting any surface whatsoever. It is good practice to be cleaning between groups of children. So I would say that yes, you should continue to sanitize, probably not need to disinfect. I think there's a difference there. And as Dr. Stoddard said, we're finding that it's not as contagious, but little kids have bodily fluids that come out. So to err on the side of caution, it would be best to continue to do the cleaning. Inside classrooms, cleaning is still required after, before eating, upon entering from outside, washing hands. You should be cleaning doorknobs and phones regularly anyway. So there's differences between sanitizing and disinfecting in terms of the amount of disinfectant or bleach that you're using with the water. So we would continue to do that. I think that doing the every hour on the hour is the part that we could let go of a little bit. Any other questions? Claudia Rummel.
Yes, I just went to the locate page and I tried to update my information, but I did 3 times the same thing and always asked me for the same information, password and my email, but never get to the page where I can update my information.
Okay, so first I want to ask, you have an account already set up in Locate? Because I think that's one of the first steps. Okay, FloJean?
Okay, it's kind of hidden, but down at the lower left-hand corner, there may be an error message. We have one of the changes we have is for that error message to appear much more obviously, but there could be an error message down at the lower left-hand corner. But rather than us walking through it all right now, give us a call on the provider line, and one of our database specialists will walk through it with you, and if necessary, get your password reset if we're not able to reset it with you. We can go to
I already reset my password. And can you share the link that you mentioned before?
Which link or
the email is in the chat. The locate@marylandfamilynetwork.org is the email that's in the chat, and the phone number is there as well. So if you look in the chat and scroll up a little bit, you'll find that.
Yes, I did.
Even if you call the regular locate number, it has an option for providers on it too, so you can get to us that way as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I will try again.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and Claudia, if that doesn't work, then you definitely send an email and someone from the locate team will help you out. As FloJean said, that if you call in the morning, then you'll get a response that day. And if it's later in the afternoon, you'll definitely get it the next business day. So that's promising. Good
Thank you.
service.
I appreciate
I have a question in my chat box. Oh, yes.
Sorry. I'm driving right now. Would it be possible to have all the links to get connection to locate childcare?
Yeah, I can send it out.
Oh,
I can
great.
send it out. Okay. Wanda?
Yeah, I just had a quick two questions. First one with the vaccine. Now that a lot of people have been vaccinated, and I'm speaking maybe of a parent or a child, and they find out they have COVID, is it still the same 14 days? I know we need to contact our nurse or the local health department, but I don't know, once a person may have been vaccinated and still got COVID, if the procedure is slightly different or is it still the same?
So at this point, the procedure is still the same. If there's someone who is exposed in your program, you would have to contact your child care licensing specialist, and you contact the health department. And based on whatever is decided, because it is case by case to determine, because is it the child, is it the parent, is it a relative that they visited? So depending on the situation to determine whether or not the program needs to be closed and for how long. Having the vaccine protects you, but does not protect anyone else. So that's the reason that we continue with the closures. But again, it is case by case depending on what your scenario is.
Thankfully, that hasn't happened. I just was curious, you know, after vaccine situation as opposed to a prior vaccine situation. And then my next question is for Rene. I have a family who are on the program, the child care program, and the parent told me that it was renewed, but I never got any paperwork. And I know in the past, I've always gotten the paperwork. I questioned the parent, and the parent said due to COVID and some other things that it was processed. So I just want to make sure that I'm not putting myself in a bad situation.
That's an outstanding question. I think that's Miss Wanda. I can't, let me see. Yeah.
Yes.
Person. Okay. So I can't speak to that particular case because we have over 19,000 children that we serve, right? So what you can do is you can send me an email and I'll get someone to research that case for you.
Okay.
One of the things that we are doing, or that we did do for the month of April, and we're doing it for the month of May, is we're extending those redeterminations so that those cases won't fall through the crack during the transition. So I don't know if that is what you're speaking to. So if you would like to email me, I will gladly have someone to look into it.
Okay, it ended in February. However, I did still get a couple of invoices, but I haven't gotten one in a while. So I was like, uh-oh, what's going on? So, okay.
Miss Person?
Yes.
Like Jerry Maguire would say, show me the money. That means show me the paperwork. That's what you need to ask for, okay? So you need to get on that because you said February. So you see how that little bit of information changed everything that I stated previously, okay? We'll gladly look into it. Jennifer, if you don't mind, I saw that there are 2 questions in the chat box in reference to the Child Care Scholarship Program. The first question was, where do parents submit their information? The address is on the application. And again, if you go to money, the number 4, the word childcare.com, all spelled out one word, you can find out any information about the program, money4childcare.com. But the address where you submit the application is on the application. And the second question was, I missed the part about what's going to happen effective in May. So we're having a new vendor that will take over in the month of May. So all the contact information is changing. So we will get that information out to providers that have invoices on our program this week, and we will also start sending that information out to our community partners.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so as soon as Renee sends that out, we'll be sending it out through our e-blast and social media platforms, most definitely. So thank you. Thanks for covering those. Okay, I can check that off. Thank you, Renee. I do have, let's see. Sorry, give me 1 second because I just moved the whole chat box and I got to go scroll through everything. I think we've answered. Is the proposed budget for Montgomery County have funding for WPA increase? Yes, there is. They're looking at the current tables and the allocations for income. It is being reviewed. I put in the chat. If you scroll back up, there are a bunch of links, but the last one I put was what Renee had said, the moneyforchildcare.com, which is for the state scholarship. All the information is there. I will send out all these links again in a follow-up email to everyone so that you have those handy. Please, if you have not registered for our e-blast, we put plenty of information in there, lots of links, lots of resources. Some people say maybe too many emails, but it's all there to help you. We try to segment it so that it's really focused on specific information. So please make sure that you sign up for our e-blast. You can go to our Facebook page and the link is on there. Or you can just send an email to earlychildhoodservices@montgomerycountymd.gov and you can request to be put on our e-blast and we'll make sure that you get the information. Are there any final questions for this evening? No. Okay, so one last thing. Today a survey went out. We are trying to determine where the gaps are with vaccines in our childcare community. We estimate that right now over 6,000 of our childcare workforce, which is a little over a third of our workforce, have been vaccinated. I am sure there are more who have used other means such as mass vac sites in PG County or in Baltimore or through Hopkins or any of the hospitals. It would be helpful for us to gauge where we are, a more accurate count. So the survey went out today. Please take a second. It's just a few questions. Basically, if you had your vaccine, just click yes and you're done. If you have not, just a couple questions so that we can figure out what the barriers are so that we can really answer the gap in services there and make sure that our providers are vaccinated. Again, if you have any questions about COVID at all, anything, business, practices, strategies, please call or email us earlychildhoodservices@montgomerycountymd.gov. You can reach one of either our nurse or any of our staff to help with any of those topics. I appreciate everyone. The past 4 months, we've been doing these monthly town halls. They've been super informational. We've had a variety of presenters, and they've been amazing to have with us. And, you know, really it was driven by what you had requested, and we tried to really provide you with topics and with answers that you have asked for. So I want to thank you. If you'd like to see more of these happen, shoot me an email, tell me what you want to see, and we'll see what we can put together for you. You know, we're here to serve the childcare community. We're here to provide you with the supports that you need. So by all means, let us know what it is that you're looking for, and we'll try and get it out there for you. So I'd like to wrap up by saying thank you to our panelists, Dr. Stoddard, Ms. Williams, Ms. Speck, and Ms. Brown. Thank you so much for this evening's information. It has been extremely helpful to understand the different components of these programs and really what our responsibility is as a provider so that we can make sure that the right information is going out. Key takeaways for Locate: make sure you put a lot of information so parents can see you. Takeaway for scholarship: be very, very transparent, be very precise about expectations, and for WPA as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a very good evening and enjoy the rest of your week. Good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Kenya, can you stop the recording, please?
Thank you.